I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Cloud.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For far too long, D.C. politicians have gotten away with measuring their personal value and worth by how much of other people's money they give away. And for far too long, they self-righteously have opined that this spending was for altruistic purposes given out of care and compassion. For far too long, they've been more concerned with looking like they cared than having enough care and concern to actually do the due diligence to ensure that the tax dollars were being used wisely and effectively. And for far too long, those of us who've worked to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse have had to deal with what amounts to an unconstitutional fourth branch of permanent bureaucracy that has too often worked to ignore, obfuscate, delay, and frustrate our efforts to bring transparency and oversight. Over the last few weeks, the DOGE effort has begun to uncover not only how massive the waste, fraud, and abuse is, but also the extent at which D.C. politicians and too many obstinate bureaucrats have coordinated to create what is essentially the largest money laundering scheme in history. And while Americans have been working to make ends meet, they have been using taxpayer dollars to fund unnecessary, egregious, and even evil things here at home and around the world.
What if I told you that while you're busting your back to make ends meet, your hard-earned tax dollars are being funneled into the hands of terrorists, drug traffickers, and foreign adversaries? You'd probably say, no way, that can't be happening in America. But guess what, folks? It is. And today, we're breaking it all down. Welcome back to Right View Nation. Patriots, what we just heard from Congressman Michael Cloud should shake every freedom-loving American to the core. This isn't just another oops, the government lost some money story. No, this is the largest money laundering scheme in the history of the United States, and it was orchestrated not by cartels or mob bosses, but by our own bloated government and complicit bureaucrats. Let's talk about the real crime syndicate, Washington, D.C.
Thankfully, in DOGE, we have a president bringing the leadership needed and a focused effort, along with the talent, technology, tools, and transparency to this waste, fraud, and abuse. And to those who would stand opposed to this effort, I would just point out, while it's understandable to find waste, fraud, and abuse that has grown and metastasized in this government even over decades, certainly accelerated over the last few years, to continue to protect it is corruption. I want to thank the chair for beginning this war on waste on this side of Pennsylvania Avenue and bringing together this committee. This effort is so important as we work to relieve the Americans, people of this burden of waste, fraud, and abuse. Mr. Talco, you mentioned in your written statement and talked about it in your statement at the beginning that this waste, fraud, and abuse is a national security threat. And certainly one of the challenges facing us that is a national security threat is our fiscal situation. And so we have got to find ways to find savings to the American people in order to bring confidence to the bond markets, to put our country on a fiscal footing, and to reverse the curse, so to speak, that we are placing on our children and our grandchildren. You mentioned a couple threats, though. You mentioned internal threats. You said that these cases involve government employees, individuals entrusted with administering benefits who, instead of using their positions to approve fraudulent claims, override security controls, or even sell sensitive claimant information for profit. Now, this is not every federal employee for sure, but within the context of people who are trying to give their best effort, we have an internal threat. But you also mentioned transnational fraud rings, terrorist organizations, nation states, North Korea, nuclear weapons programs funded by our tax dollars, China, Nigeria, Iran, Romania, Russia, not our friends necessarily that are being funded by taxpayer dollars. Could you give us some examples of how this is happening?
God, yeah. So when you think about what happened during the pandemic, $1 trillion was stolen. 70% of that money went overseas. And I can give you some examples. In a Western state, they had more people applying for unemployment insurance benefits than they had individuals over 18. The people that were stealing the money from Romania were using it to facilitate other fraud schemes that include fentanyl, that include doing things to impact our democracy. On the insider threat, right, the first thing you have to say, and my dad was a public servant, is 99% of people that work in the public sector are honest, hardworking individuals. But there are some. And what you need is data and technology to root that out. There were examples during the pandemic. There were some examples even of last week where people got into the Medicaid system in a western state and stole $50 million in less than 4 months. So you have to have these controls in place, right? These aren't individuals stealing, Mr. Cloud. These are organized criminal groups, both domestic and transnational.
That, as you mentioned, taxpayers are being forced to fund the demise of our own country. Mr. Whitson, I wanted to ask you, because there's a lot of talk about reconciliation right now. You mentioned Medicaid and what could be done to bring a pretty substantial amount of savings, and this is without affecting those who truly need Medicaid and for what the purpose of the program was extended for. Now,
The gentleman's time has expired.
hopefully,
Does the
For far too long, politicians on the left have used our money like it grows on trees. They pat themselves on the back for helping people, while throwing cash at every pet project, foreign interest, and activist agenda they can dream up. But when someone like Michael Cloud steps up and says, "Hold on a minute, where is all this money going?" he's treated like the problem. That ends today. Let's break this down. During COVID, when Americans were losing their jobs, shuttering businesses, and trying to figure out how to keep food on the table, over $1 trillion was stolen. That's trillion with a T, folks. 70% of it? Gone overseas. Romanian fraudsters, North Korean hackers, terrorist networks, you name it. They were all cashing in on your taxpayer dollars. How? Through phony unemployment claims, Medicaid fraud, identity theft. And what did our federal government do? Nothing. Why? Because the bureaucracy is too bloated and lazy, or worse, corrupt, to do anything about it. They weren't watching the store because they never cared about the store to begin with. You know what's even more infuriating? Cloud revealed that some of this theft was enabled by government employees. That's right. People entrusted to safeguard benefits were actively overriding security systems or even selling sensitive data for profit. Now, before the left starts screaming, "Not all government workers," let's be clear. Most people are doing honest work. But let's not kid ourselves. The system is broken, and it protects the corrupt. If we can't fire or jail the bad apples, the whole tree rots. And this tree has been rotting for decades. Brace yourselves, because this part is treasonous. According to testimony, your money, our money, has funded North Korea's nuclear program, terrorist organizations, the Chinese Communist Party, corrupt actors in Russia, Iran, Nigeria, and more. I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of working hard just to subsidize our enemies. And guess who keeps voting for blank checks to go out the door? The swamp. And that includes both parties, folks. Let's not pretend rhinos haven't played their part. But the worst offenders? The ones screaming for more stimulus and relief packages without oversight? They've been sending our money overseas and calling it compassion. This isn't just fraud. This is a national security crisis. If we're sending billions overseas to enrich hostile nations, fund drug trafficking, and undermine our own democracy, that's not just mismanagement. That's treason. And the more we ignore it, the more we embolden our enemies. It's time to stop the nonsense and get serious. We don't need more committees, more studies, or more speeches. We need action. We need patriots in Washington who will slash the size of government, enforce strict oversight on every federal program, hold every corrupt bureaucrat and politician accountable, and return power to we the people now. There's a light in the darkness. Congressman Cloud mentioned a new initiative called DOGE, the Department of Government Oversight and Efficiency. Finally, a name I can get behind. It's high time someone with guts stepped up and said, "Enough is enough." This initiative is using technology and data to trace where the money goes, expose fraudsters, and hopefully finally start cleaning house. But you know what? They can't do it alone. Patriots, this is where we come in. We have to stay informed, speak out, and demand accountability. Don't let the media brush this off as a clerical error. This is the largest fraud operation in U.S. history, and if we don't stop it now, the America we love, free, sovereign, prosperous, won't survive another generation. So here's what you can do right now. Call your representatives. Demand investigations. Demand prosecutions. Vote out every career politician who's been asleep at the wheel. Support whistleblowers and watchdogs who are exposing the truth. And share this video. Wake up your friends, your family, your neighbors. If you're tired of the lies, if you're tired of funding your own demise, if you're ready to reclaim America from the corrupt elite, you're in the right place. This is Right View Nation, and we're just getting started. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the truth the mainstream won't show you. God bless you. God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. Until next time, stay free, stay strong, and stay loud.